Hey everyone, this is Sergeant DangerCow from BSM. Thanks for joining me in episode 2 of Chewing the Cud. I want to recap quickly on my talking of QA in DICE, which I did last video. I sent my video to a guy called FlappyJacks who works for QA in DICE, and he and I got chatting in Battlelog about things and stuff. Now obviously there are many details he can't discuss with me, which is completely understandable. However, what did come out of the conversation were 3 points that reinforce my points made in episode 1 and actually helped refine the approach we could all look to take when reporting bugs. Firstly, FlappyJacks wanted to stress the difference between QA and fixers, coders, or whatever. In the roar of rage, it is sometimes hard to discriminate between departments, and when there is a focal point open to public communication, they often become overloaded with generic comments such as "fix the netcode," about which they, i.e. QA, can do nothing. QA are there to live test bugs and then up-channel them to the people who actually do fix the problem. Secondly, FlappyJacks reiterated the need for a good reproduction of any bug, if possible, on video. He suggested that we try to replicate the bug in a controlled environment, i.e. an empty server, so as to eliminate other factors being involved in the bug. He said, and I quote, "I cannot stress enough how helpful videos like JackFrag's one-hit kill bug video are." Finally, he said that his contact information was available on his Battlelog profile, and he was contactable on Twitter, which is @DiceFlappyJacks, or email flappyjacks.issues@gmail.com. Please remember that FlappyJacks is not customer service, and please be respectful if you choose to contact him. Moving on to the first of the 2 main topics this week, I want to talk about the disappearance of all the medic and assault class players that used to be assault in BF3. Now, in my opinion, there are a few factors contributing to players choosing classes other than assault. Some are probably more peripheral than others, but they all seem to contribute to this phenomenon. In the periphery, for example, is the time it takes to unlock the medikit as opposed to the expirable medipack. Now, there are arguments, of course, that the medipack is more tactically versatile because people can be healed while still running rather than a medikit which you have to stand next to, but you can discuss that in the comments below. Another is with the more cover afforded to snipers and so on, it's easier for medics to be killed whilst they're trying to revive. More in the foreground, in my opinion, are 3 main factors. For the purposes of this, I'm ignoring Operation Locker because I think that map is anomalous to how most people play. Firstly, it's much harder to get to a fallen teammate. The time it takes for someone to be able to be rezzed has been reduced from BF3, and so it makes it more difficult to actually get to someone to res them. This, compounded with the apparent res bug and the charge time for pads, has put many people off playing as assault. Secondly, the fact that the loadout is more flexible now means more people are using some variant of the M320 or such like, combined with medikit instead of paddles. This is largely because of what I've just mentioned, but is commonplace pretty much all over the battlefield. Finally, and arguably the most crucial coffin nail, is the change in XP you get for a revive. In BF3, of course, you got 100 XP, and this led to some stat padding and also to what became termed as grief or troll rezzing. I think it's widely accepted that the main reason that the way the reviving mechanics and XP have changed is an attempt by DICE to reduce the troll rezzing and stat padding. However, in some ways, this has left us with a dearth of medics. The upside is that the medics who are left tend to be more conscientious and tactically minded ones who won't res you in the middle of an enemy fire line. Of course, the downside is that the number of these medics is spread very thin on the ground. As always, part of Chewing the Cud is an attempt to offer a solution to the problem, and in this case I think it's pretty obvious and simple. I don't think for 1 minute that the mechanics of reviving should change. I think it's a fantastically well thought out part of an undoubtedly more tactical game. But perhaps the XP can be increased to 50 rather than 12 for a basic revival. In my experience, there isn't often enough time to get a good charge on the paddle, and by the time you get to a fallen teammate, more often than not you're killed whilst you're trying to charge. Therefore, the easiest thing is surely to raise the XP. I think 50 is probably a reasonable measure. After all, medics often risk their own life to revive someone, so the reward should probably reflect that a bit more. If you think it should be more or less or shouldn't change at all, let me know in the comments box below. Now I want to talk about the default settings for hardcore mode. This has been a topic of some debate in the British Sergeant's Mess community. Currently, if you have a hardcore server and it has the minimap enabled, it will be filtered out by the hardcore server checkbox when searching for servers in Battlelog. The same goes for hit markers. Obviously, everyone will have their own opinion on this and will enjoy the game more or less because of those default settings. However, I feel strongly that we, as server owners, have suddenly been handed quite a change to the way the game plays and are obligated to follow it. I'm aware of the argument, of course, that it's DICE's game and we should respect the way they believe things should be, but I don't buy that, as it offers them carte blanche to do anything. At its most basic level, hardcore mode is about the health percentage. In hardcore, as most of you know, the health is 60% of what it is in softcore, which makes it harder for people to dodge around and still survive a whole magazine into them. The removal of 3D spotting is probably the next most obvious difference, followed by the change in HUD deals, showing your ammo and so on and so forth. But none of these things have changed from BF3. What has changed is the removal of the minimap in HUD along with, seemingly arbitrarily, the hit markers. Starting with the minimap, this is a double-edged sword, and as such I can appreciate the more tense and tactical element it affords the game, especially after the friendly Dorito delay has been fixed. On the flip side, it removes a large portion of the point of having a commander. What's the point in UAVs, for example? Of course, one can hit M and see what's around, but that's quite hard to do when under enemy fire or trying to outrun a plane or go from place to place, especially when so much more cover and camouflage is available. I don't know personally whether I've become so used to using my peripheral vision to see an enemy on my minimap and BF3 that I'm labouring under that mental block, or if I have a genuine gripe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Finally, with regard to default hardcore settings, is hit markers being removed. Now, like I said before, on the face of it, this seems like a somewhat arbitrary change. The thing is, of course, that again it adds to the more tactical feel of the game. Uncertainty of whether you hit someone enough or how hurt they are, if they survive you shooting at them, makes for a more involving game. The new character animations give you some clue, of course, but unless you see them die, it makes life a little uncertain. In my opinion, this isn't a bad thing. I actually think it will be a good thing, but only after one crucial stage, and that is the fixing of hit detection. I think it's reasonable to say that the hit detection success in BF4 is at this moment hit and miss literally, so the lack of a hit marker to indicate a solid hit can make it very frustrating, especially when you have developed a feel from BF3 for when a player should be dead. In my eyes, the decision to remove the minimap and hit markers as part of the filter defaults for hardcore is a plus and a minus. Aside from cutting the server owner's customization, it's quite a significant change from BF3. Of course, this may be no bad thing, but that isn't actually the issue. The point here is that whether the server owner should have the option to add it without suffering from then being excluded from search results filtered with hardcore. In reality, it makes little difference to DICE whether the minimap and hit marker are enabled or not. It may not be their vision of how hardcore should be, but shouldn't the server owner have the choice of leaving it vanilla or altering the settings without being excluded from the hardcore filter as a result? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.